Frasier Crane's Day Off is the 23rd episode of the first season of Frasier, directed by the wonderful James Burrows, and as is usually the case, this is another Frasier episode that I really love. We have some really great performances from everybody, but particularly David Hyde Pierce, Kelsey Grammer, and Jane Leeves. Frasier is not feeling very well, and he decides, perhaps reluctantly, to stay at home and get over this flu. And Daphne is looking after him, also slightly reluctantly, because Frasier, in true Frasier style, becomes increasingly needy and whiny and demanding, wanting rose petals in the purifier and crustless toast. And obviously, to begin with, Daphne's fine to do what he asks, but her frustration and her inability to let out her frustration on him, and sees her getting increasingly wound up. And it was a wonderful performance, and I think Kelsey Grammer gave a great performance of being sick and being unwell. And Niles Niles agrees to take over Frasier's show, which was really interesting, and it kind of shows what the show could have been like had it been called Niles. Obviously, this came after Cheers with Frasier, but had they decided to create Niles as the main character, it's interesting to see what it could have been like. Particularly because Frasier, if you haven't seen Frasier in Cheers, I won't spoil it too much, but Frasier initially as a character started out quite a lot like Niles. If you watch Kelsey Grammer's earliest performances as Frasier, it's kind of almost like watching Niles. So in a way, had the character not developed over those seasons in Cheers, they might have written Frasier, the TV show, with a character like Niles. I hope that makes sense. And it's just interesting to see what the radio show could be like with Niles at the helm rather than Frasier. And I thought David Hyde Pierce's performance was great, very energised and enthusiastic and brilliantly done. And it was nice to see him interacting with Roz, and I loved all of that. We also get Gil, the food critic, played by Edward Hibbert, and his performance was wonderful as well. The character is very much a love to hate. I think he's a brilliantly written character, brilliantly performed, but he's irritating, but in a way that I love and I find kind of charming. And I just thought he brought something great to this, and I really liked seeing his radio show, or listening, I guess, to his radio show. It's also nice to see Frasier's room. We get to see some more of the set that we don't normally see, which makes it a little bit different, a nice little change of pace rather than just having it all set in the main room. It's nice to see. Frasier's room's quite cluttered. In a way, I'm not surprised, because a lot of it looks like art. But at the same time, I feel like Frasier's the kind of person, as we see with his main room, where everything's got its place, but it's not very cluttered. But his bedroom, I guess because it's a smaller space, it's just a very interesting design. Really love this episode. We get to see so many different characters performing, or actors performing such great characters, and Martin had some great lines, and it was really sweet that Martin was there for Frasier and sitting with Frasier. Even though he turned it into a joke, it is, he still sat with his son when his son was unwell, which I thought was very moving. Brilliant episode, very funny when it needs to be. In fact, I'd say it's funny all of the way through. Obviously, we don't want to see Frasier unwell. That's not funny in itself, but even then, it was great. And Frasier, I don't want to say too much about what happens with Frasier, but in the final third of the episode, Frasier gets energised and is determined to take back his radio show, and the performance there as well. Brilliant performance, but very, very, very well written. Mixing his words up, just the delivery of those lines as well. It was just beautifully executed. Really fantastic. I'd say flawless episode. I mean, a lot of Frasier episodes are flawless or near to it, but I can't think of anything about this that didn't work. Anything that I think could have been done differently, or the pacing changed. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Frasier Crane's Day Off was absolutely delightful.